Pleasure to welcome you all once again to my channel. Today we are going to focus on some of the idioms which we can use in our daily life. So let's see that in the next slide. Idioms to improve your vocabulary. To be as thick as thieves. It means to be very close or friendly. The next one is to become friends. It means strike up a friendship. The third one is a shoulder to cry on. It means someone listens to your problems. So you can use these words instead of using the familiar words, which can help you to stand out among the common speakers. So with this, today we are going to focus on the Old English literature. So Old English literature. From today we are going to see the chapter wise in a very detailed illustration manner. So here with this we can move to the next slide. Here I had given what are all the topics I am going to focus on. So the first one is Old English literature. Old English literature, that is the Old English language, is also called Anglo-Saxon. It was the earliest form of English. It is difficult to give exact dates for the rise and development of the language because it doesn't change suddenly, but it is believed that the Old English was spoken from about AD 600 to 1100. The next one is Beowulf. Beowulf is the Old English poem which belongs to the 7th century. It is the poem of 3000 lines and it is the first English epic. Its author name is unknown. This Beowulf is not about the England but it's about Hrothgar, the king of Danes, and about a brave young man called Beowulf. He is from southern Sweden who goes to help King Hrothgar because Hrothgar is in trouble because his great hall called Hioret is visited at night by a terrible creature called Grendel, which lives in a lake and comes to kill and eat Hrothgar's men. One night, Beowulf secretly waits for the creature and attacks it and pulls its arm off. It manages to reach the lake again but dies there. So its mother comes to the hall in search of revenge and then attacks the begin again. So Beowulf follows her to the bottom of the lake and kills her there. In later days, Beowulf became the king of his people. He has to defend his country against a fire-breathing creature. He kills the animal, but he badly wounded in the fight and finally he dies. The poem ends with a sorrowful description of Beowulf's funeral fire. Here, the Old English language. Let's move on to the Old English language. So far we had seen the Beowulf, the Old English poem, and it is known as the Old English epic and its story. Now we are moving to the Old English language. The Old English language cannot be read now except by those who have made a special study of it. If you didn't have a special study, you can't read Old English language. So among the critics who cannot read Old English, there are some who are unkind to the poem. But Beowulf has its own value because it gives us an interesting picture of life in those old days. It tells us about the fierce fights and brave deeds and the speeches of the leader and the sufferings of the men. So while you are reading the Beowulf poem, which gives us an interesting picture of those people who lived in the Old English time and about the fierce fights and brave deeds and the speeches of the leader and the sufferings of his men. But the Old English language can be read only by the people who had a study and the special study of it. Otherwise, you cannot get to know what is said in the Old English language. In the Old English language, especially in the poems, it describes their life in the hall, the terrible creatures that they had to fight, and the ships and travels, their hard life on the sea and land, they did not enjoy it much, but they bore it well because the sea life is very difficult. So all these descriptions and illustration we can found in the poem Beowulf, and the few lines of Beowulf given here, let me read out that. The sorrowing soldiers then laid the glorious prince, their dear lord, in the middle. Then on the hill the war men began to light the greatest of funeral fires. The wood smoke rose black above the flames, the noisy fire mixed with sorrowful cries. Here actually it is given in a translation form of the Old English language, but the real Old English language is very difficult to read it. So here the translation was given here, so I had read that. So apart from that, the few lines of Beowulf, which will not give us the complete explanation, but we can witness one thing: the Old English poems had the kind of verse. For example, in the Old English poems we can find that each half line has two main beats and there will be no rhyme. So in Beowulf poem we can sense that each half line has two main beats and there will be no rhyme. Instead, each half line is joined to the other by alliteration. So this was the form of the Old English poem. And the next thing is, the next quality in the Old English poems is things are described indirectly and in combination of words. For example, if you want to mention the ship will not only mention the ship, it will also symbolize seagoer, sea boat, sea wood, or a wave floater. All these combination of words will have the same meaning, ship. So if you say the word or utter the word ship, it will not only symbolize the image of the ship. It also has the all other meanings like seagoer, sea boat, sea wood, wave floater, like that. So this was some of the qualities in the Old English poems. Then some of the Old English poems, the famous Old English poems are Genesis A, Genesis B, Exodus, Daniel. These are the Old English poem. And the special feature of the Old English poems is they will describe the sad events or cruel situations or commoner and in better writing than those of happiness. These poems will concentrate only on the sorrowful events and the sad events, cruel situations, like that. It will not give much importance to the happy events. So some of the Old English poems here I had mentioned Genesis A, Genesis B, Exodus and Daniel. Here Genesis B will talk about the beginning of the world and fall of the angels. It's actually a good piece of writing. The poet has thoroughly enjoyed describing God's punishment of Satan and the place of punishment for evil in hell. And if you take the Genesis A, it's actually a dull, little more than old history taken from the Bible and put into poor Old English verse. As I said you before, these Old English poems will written in the form of verse, and the first one, that is the Genesis A, will directly talk about the Bible events. The stories will be about the Bible stories. The second one, Genesis B, talks about the beginning of the world and the fall of the angels and God's punishment of Satan and the place of punishment for evil in hell, all those things. So other poems are taken straight from the Bible, that is the Exodus. Exodus is a well written example for that. The story of the Exodus is about the Bible story. It is taken straight from the Bible. The another poem is Christ and Satan. In the next slide we can see that. It deals with events in Christ's life. It is also one of the famous Old English poem. It deals with the events in Christ's life. And we know the names of two Old English poets, Caedmon and Cynewulf. They are the Old English poets who are very familiar in those days. But the pathetic situation is, if you take Caedmon, Caedmon is actually a poor countryman who used to stay apart when his fellows sang songs to God. For Caedmon was uneducated and could not sing. He was the person of uneducated and he could not sing. One night an angel will appear in his dreams and told him to sing God's praise. So when he woke, he was able to sing and part of one of his songs remains. The others get lost, but only one of his song remains. The next one is Cynewulf. He is famous for his four poems: Juliana, the Fates of the Apostle, Christ and Elena. All these are the famous poems of Cynewulf. Steinwolf poems are usually religious poems and were probably written in the second half of the 8th century. Some of the other poems include Andreas and Gutlick. If you take the Gutlick, the story of Gutlick is about the holy man who was tempted in the desert. So this was the story of Gutlick. And the next one is The Dream of the Rood. Yeah, The Dream of the Rood is also a better poem. Here the rood means Christ cross. This is one of the best example of Old English poems. And here we are going to focus on Old English lyrics. The divorce complaint, the husband's message, the wanderer, wife's complaint, the battle of Malden. All these are Old English lyrics. Here, if you take the divorce complaint, the dior is actually a singer who has lost his lord's favor. So he complains but tries to comfort himself by remembering other sorrows of the world. Of each one he says, that passed over, this may do so also. That passed over, this may do so also. It is one of the famous lines from the divorce complaint, and it is the story of the divorce complaint too. The next one is the other better poems, that is the Battle of Malden. It has the other name, that is late poem. The Battle of Malden has other name, the late poem. It is called as late poem. It is about the battle which was fought against the Danes in 991. This poem has highly praised for the words of courage. So the Battle of Malden, the subtitle of Battle of Malden is the late poem, and it is praised for the words of courage. The next one is Old English prose and verse. The Old English prose came later than Old English verse. So in the older days, the Old English verse were used to common, but not the Old English prose. It came later. Then the oldest laws. Actually, in the beginning of the 7th century, we had Old English laws. One of the example of the Old English law is, if you split a man's ear, you had to pay 30 shillings. This was not belong to the literature, but we have to know what are all the laws which remained in the Old English literature. And also the prose piece. One of the finest prose piece and example of prose is the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. It talks about the several chronicles belonging to different cities, and King Alfred had great influence on the work, and he is famous for his Anglo-Saxon Chronicle. He probably brought the different writings into some kind of order, and he also translated a number of Latin books into Old English, because those days Latin was the famous language than English, and this Latin can be used and known only by the clergy people and from only for the aristocrats. So other people are not used to that. So here King Alfred had a thought, why can't we translate this Latin language into English so that all people can read it. So he brought back learning to England and improved the education of his people. The another important writer of prose is Aelfric. His famous works are Homilies and Lives of Saints. These two books are religious books. He wrote out in Old English the meaning of the first 7 books of the Bible. His prose style is best in Old English, and he uses alliteration to join the sentences together. So with this, came to the end of the session. So this was about the Old English literature, guys. I want to give some other information, so wait for that till the next video get upload. I hope you guys will get immense information from my channel. Thank you for supporting me. Keep supporting me like this, encourage me like this, so that it will help me a lot to give you more informations which I know so far. So thank you once again, guys. Have a great day. Take care. Bye bye.